Let's go do a quick look up at the worm farm, and I have something fun to talk about because I kind of got screwed over, and I'll tell you how here in a minute. Let's see if we have any dead worms on top first. Not on the sidewalk, not on top that I see. So flipped a little bit. The worms are doing fine, but that isn't going to matter for these worms because this is not a red wiggler. Let me find a red wiggler and I'll show you the difference really quick. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but I have two different types of worms here. This one in the middle is a red wiggler, 95% sure. This one, and definitely this one, and probably that one, are blue worms. Now, how did I get these? I never ordered blue worms, and I never intended to. Well, I'll tell you. So I have two types of worms in my worm bin now because I screwed up and I didn't vet a supplier. This is a red worm, and you can tell, one of the main ways to tell is it's a little bit, you know, it's got kind of a fat body compared to these other ones I'm going to show you, the blue worms. And the clitellum or satellum, I don't know actually how to pronounce the word. The ring on the worm is a lot more pronounced, and this one was when it was shoot, this might be a blue worm. Hold on. Yeah, find a good example of a red worm. Give me a second. There's one. You see that ring? Pretty pronounced, pretty obvious. The blue worms, it's almost impossible to see theirs. And they're a lot skinnier bodied. My red worms are small right now. In fact, a lot of them are babies that have hatched in here. Let's go where I put the blue worms last week, and let's find one. There's one right here. Here's a blue worm. You can see how skinny they are. Watch them move. Here's another one. Blue worms they look a lot like red worms, but they don't have a very pronounced ring. Now look, you can see how skinny they are comparatively. They don't really kind of have they don't have a lot of girth to their body. Here's a whole pocket of them. They're sort of difficult worms to raise apparently. These ones seem to be happy and doing well, but they can't survive the winter, especially my winters where it gets really, really cold. Sorry for the convoluted description earlier, and I couldn't find good examples of the two types of worms. I'm only 90% sure that one I said was a red worm was a red worm. When blue worms are getting ready to drop a cocoon, they can kind of get a bigger ring and looks more like a red worm, but they're not. One of the best ways is to hold them in your hand. The blue worms a lot of times flip around and get all excited. I mean, I've heard them actually called jumping worms by some people, like Alabama jumpers, stuff like that. They're really skinny, they're really quick, they move fast, they get cruising. European night crawlers and red wigglers will be a little bit more chill. They'll move pretty quick, but they're not, they're not like super fast for a worm. When you see a blue worm move, you're just like, wow, that's pretty quick for a worm. But so what happened was I ordered from a supplier that I was really excited to find because I had okay notes on them. My only bad note was that they didn't send the amount of worms they were going to send, or and they shipped them badly. Last time I got them from them, the packages were completely destroyed. But my notes also said they were good worms. And at the time they may have been good worms, and this time they look good too. And last week when I was making a video, I noticed that they were very different looking worms. I noticed that some were probably blues, and I didn't really mention it because I was getting onto a different subject of video at the time. There were some red wigglers mixed in there. It was probably close to 50-50, maybe 40-60. I think mostly blues. You can see if you go back and watch last week's video how active and jumpy they are, those are very, very likely the blue worms, while the ones that seem more docile and fat and long are probably the red wigglers mixed in there. And what happens is a lot of farms, I hesitate to say they lie, because I don't want to believe they're doing this on purpose. They might be though. Some might be. I'm sure several are. But they sell blue worms as if they're red worms. And they're both good composters. In fact, blue worms, some people say, are better composters. They're faster moving, they eat more, they reproduce faster, which is part of why so many people have people consider them a pest or an infestation when you're just trying to do red worms, is because they can outcompete them. And so right now, since I just put a bunch of blue worms in, I'm basically not going to be able to sell worms this year until all the blue worms die off this winter, because that's the problem with blue worms, is they are not very hardy. These blue worms in here are all going to die as soon as that bed gets below 40 degrees. They can't handle, they're not as hardy as red wigglers or European night crawlers. They just can't do it. They're just going to die. In fact, they may even start dying as it gets below 50 inside that bed. They're going to do great this summer. They're going to make me a lot of good castings. But as far as my worm stock now, it's contaminated with blue worms. And that was my own fault. I got excited seeing a bulk sale and I went for it from a farm I'd used before. And I don't think it actually came from their main farm. A lot of farms use partners and stuff like that. I think they sent out to their affiliates, say, hey, this person needs 5 pounds, and someone from a different state picked it up and sent it, and they sent me the wrong type of worms. I've sent an email to them. That's why I'm not naming the farm just yet, because I've sent an email to complain and tell them what happened. I'm going to see if they fix it. If they don't, maybe I will name and shame a little bit, because it's a bad practice. It's dishonest. It's just not right, because people order a type of worm on purpose. At least people like me do, because they need it for their climate or their situation, their system, and they expect that worm. There's one place that does good every time, and that's Northwest Red Worms. I've ordered from them several times, but they're out for the year, so not ordering from them right now. They send great fat red wiggler worms all the time, and their European night crawlers are amazing too, and I've never seen a contamination with their worms. And I know from watching his videos that he vets he also does use different farms to help supply worms and stuff like that when people do orders, but he vets his people really, really well. I've watched videos where he gets a pound. He won't let anyone sell under his name or however he does it, unless they can prove to him they send the right amount of worms and the right type of worms. And I really appreciate that he does that. And if I eventually start selling worms alongside compost, I'm definitely going to do that as well, if I do a partnership thing. But I don't know. I got a huge facility here. I may be able to do it all without that, but I'm gonna be very, very careful about the type of worms I send, because right now like I said, I basically gotta let these ones die. My red wiggler should survive. If they can survive this summer during the competition, which I think they will, because I did find a place that's selling red wigglers. A commenter in the last video showed them to me, and I reached out, and I got we're gonna basically be competing with blue worms all summer now, but I think we'll be all right since we have so much space and so much feed. They should be able to live side by side just fine. The blue worms will tear through this stuff quick and get me some good castings, so we're gonna be okay. But anyway, that's some things you have to watch out for. When you're ordering from farms, they're not always sending you the worms you're ordering. It's really disappointing, but that's just the truth of it. You got to check. Like I tried to explain earlier, the way to check for blue worms and red worms is, skinny and fast and out of control and not a really pronounced ring on them. Very likely a blue worm. Pretty fat, happy, about 4 or 5 inches long, 4 inches long, more so. Dark red, that's probably going to be a red worm. You're going to see that really pronounced ring on it. European night crawlers are going to look a lot like a red worm, just almost double the size. So if you have any, there's better resources online to tell the two apart that you should check, but just mostly reason I'm making this video isn't to give a definitive definition of the two worms, but to warn people that are buying compost worms to start their own home systems, their own farms, that you may not always be getting the worms you ordered, and you should check really carefully. I should have done a better job last week. It's not the end of the world for me because it gets cold here, and I know these blue worms aren't going to last forever. It just kind of set me back at least a year on selling worms, because I don't want to sell blue worms because they're worthless to me. They'll live 6 months here top. One thing to note though is blue worms aren't bad for everybody, just bad for me. If you live in a pretty warm climate, they're going to be great for you. They're supposedly a little finicky and like to escape and wander a lot. I've never seen that because I had some last year too, and I never had wandering issues. They just like warmer weather, kind of like African night crawlers. You just got to keep them warm. So that's why in a lot of tropical places, people are using blue worms and African night crawlers. They just don't work in very temperate climates where you have real winters and it gets below freezing for long periods of time. Blue worms just can't survive that. So they're not a bad composter. They're just bad composter for certain areas, and mine's one of those areas. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thanks for watching. Just kind of one of those kind of warning videos. I like making videos about mistakes because I feel like other people should be able to avoid them too. It's just better that way. One person makes a mistake, they should always share what happened so other people can avoid that same mistake. And hopefully, this isn't a new industry, but it's getting bigger, and hopefully as it grows, as people become more aware, we can keep the industry honest, because that's really important. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more. I'll be back next week.